Just gonna open with a dog whistle, huh? Alright, let's get into it. People are gonna get mad because that's a dog whistle. Today we're gonna talk about misinformation and why it's dangerous, and why accurate history is important. The use of the word Wotan, well, it's all over the net. Whether intentional or not, people have been using it without realizing its history. First we'll cover its first appearance, and then the explanation. Richard Wagner first coined this word by that spelling. We'll get into that later. In one of his 4 operas, Der Ring des Nibelungen specifically, it was a spelling of his own creation, a combination of the High German Wotan and Low German Wodan. It inspired a young 12-year-old Hulf A. Dittler. Young Dolphy Boy even wrote about it in his book Mein Kampf. He even had some of the original scores, which he considered prized possessions. He co-opted it. It's misappropriation and propaganda. So realize that whenever you see that word by that spelling, though many who use it today thanks to the internet and misinformation don't understand this. That specific spelling intent signals to other groups. It's used in many supremacy groups, such as the Wotan Nation in Tennessee, who recently made the news by buying a large chunk of land for a neighborhood association. Even the AFA use it. Their digital propaganda network was called the Wotan Network, and they love that Wagner World War II soundtrack. Fun fact, in World War II, Germany just didn't declare war on the world, and everybody not Aryan, but also Christmas. They tried to insert their Wotan, a recent invention, into Christmas in order to subvert Christianity. You have to understand it was the majority of the time. And the Thule Society, well, they couldn't make their crazy propaganda stick if they didn't. They knew they couldn't get rid of Christianity, so they opted to culturally shift things. This word Wotan and this spelling was a way to assert their ideology into the population and accept all the crazy nonsense that I also go over in my playlist, like Atlantis. Make sure you are certain and your feet are firmly planted before you at me with every use of this word on the internet. Most of them are wrong. World War II Germany was notorious for pseudo-archaeology, history, and science. Many get overburdened by the weird and preposterousness of a lot of things they proposed, especially when it came to propaganda versus philosophy. It's overwhelming, I get it. You see, they love pointing back at things that had anchors in reality and history, but then twisting it. For example, from the sagas, they often referred to the war as Ragnarok. They even had posters back then of World War II German soldiers fighting Fenris. Posters of a soldier standing stoically looking into the distance with a ghost of a Viking right over his shoulder doing the exact same thing. And all because Wagner wrote that opera and little Dolphy Boy was inspired by it. I guess that means that their fascism was based on a misspelling. Speaking of misspellings, Odin is referred to by many names, not just titles. Scholars are pretty certain that it began with a name called Wodanaz. And I know how you guys like to talk about the Germanic tribes, so let me preface this with a few things before we debunk all that. I refer to those people as the Proto-Norse. What? Wagner gets to assert Wotan, why can't I assert something? But it's my attempt to cut off fascists from history. They love to call back to the many different tribes. There's over 30. They love to call back to Tacitus and his recollection of a few, asserting that 30-plus groups and tribes of Proto-Norse stood outside and hung out with Tacitus is absurd because the Roman Empire was gigantic. Prior to migration, they had similar customs and traits, but they all migrated for quite some time. When they were encountered by the Roman Empire, many of them in their wandering had begun to change their customs and culture. Some would band together and merge, their language and everything evolving as they wandered and merged and did their thing. This is how we get so many names to the word Odin, and that one's American. Scholars are pretty certain that it comes from the word Wodanaz, and that would evolve with the Anglo-Saxon and why we have the word Wednesday for the day of the week now. And all these individual tribes were slowly recorded at different times and different locations by the Roman Empire. To assert they were all the same is preposterous. Just thought we'd cover that. Because you love to assert that because they did one thing, they all did it. So in closing, it has been a pleasure proving you wrong about Wotan. how it's a fascist construction from World War II, and using that spelling clearly tells me who you are, and how you even love to misspell history to paint your own words and narratives. This wasn't the flex you thought it was, kid. And actually, it's because of this word that we have Odinism, which is very AFA based. So hey, I have a dumb question. Will you be asking Wotan for a crash helmet at Yule? You know, cause you keep falling on your face?